Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of One Pod for All. Today is a very slow day for me, and I thought there is nothing better than a story time episode. So today we're finally going to be talking about my trip to America. I knew before I left that I wanted to record an episode about the trip, but when I got back, there were other episodes to record, and I do have somewhat of a list. Of course, I can mix it up, but I also wanted the memories of the trip to set a little. I wanted to get back to reality, and now that I have gotten back to reality, I wish I hadn't because oh my God, being on vacation was just so much better. So I'm just randomly going to talk about everything that comes to my mind concerning this trip, where we went exactly, how long we stayed. I'm going to talk about the experiences that we made, about what I liked and what I didn't like. But let me just tell you one thing. I want to move to New York City now. Yeah. I know I can't, but I want to. And I hate this because before we went on that trip, I didn't know that was something I might want. I was definitely aware that I would probably like that city, but I was also ready to be disappointed because my expectations, oh my God, they were high. But then they were met and I loved it. And now I'm sad. So this trip just made me sad. No, it didn't. It was amazing. But yeah, I mean, oh my God, New York City. I really want to go back, even if it's just for another vacation. But wow, I am blown away. But we went to New York City much later. The trip begins in Miami. And this is what I'll be talking about now. So first of all, I have to say that this trip was not my idea, and it wasn't a trip for me or about me, but it was about one of my absolute closest friends. I've known him for decades. He is one of my best friends ever, and I can't imagine life without him. And although this is so emotional and cheesy right now, it's the truth. And he turned 30 this year, as will I soon in September. I mean, yeah, it might not sound like it's soon, but for me, it's soon. But anyway, we went on this trip for his birthday because he is a January child. And you know, if you live in Europe and you don't live in one of those really warm regions, your birthday is not going to be a nice one. Like, it's going to be gray, dark, rainy. It's going to be freezing. You don't want to have your birthday in January if you live where we live. So he wanted to get out of here and he wanted to get somewhere warm. So when he looked for where to go, he took some time to figure it out, but then he decided on Miami. And then he asked me if I wanted to tag along. But then we're already there. A trip to New York City might be something cool. He decided all that. I was just asked and invited, and I said, yes, I'm ready. I'll go where you go. Please take me with you. Just speechless because I didn't expect it. And it was somewhat of a quick decision because he asked me to go in November, and basically 2 months later, we were on that plane. So just in terms of like preparing for this trip, I didn't have that much time. There was Christmas in between, so many things to organize. So I was very, very excited about the trip, but also a little panicky. And as I mentioned in one of my previous episodes, I think it was one of my first, the travel episode, I am afraid of flying. I don't like being on a plane. And I've never been on a plane for longer than like 2 hours. So we went from Berlin to Miami, and that was a basically 11-hour flight. So I didn't know how I would deal with that. But I think I managed. I think it went pretty well. So, you know, before we went on that trip, that was definitely something that I was afraid of. And now I'm really happy that it turned out so well. And honestly, I'm actually really proud how I did on that flight because there was a little bit of turbulence, and we went on that trip with two of his other really close friends, and they were basically asleep the entire flight, but we weren't. We sat next to each other, we were watching a movie, and then turbulence happened, and I was actually really calm. I mean, I noticed it, and I got a little bit anxious, but I don't think anyone else noticed that I was a bit afraid. But then when I looked to my friend, he looked even more panicky than I did. And I was like, wow, I'm taking this really well right now. Of course, it wasn't really bad. Like, it wasn't a big thing. But when you're afraid of being on a plane everything seems like it's a big thing, even if it's not. And I remember one of my first flights ever, and it was a very sunny day. It was in the middle of July. Everything was perfect, like the weather was perfect. But there was a little bit of turbulence, a little bit of wind or whatever, and I just panicked so much. And it was a short flight. I got out of there really quickly, but I remember this so well. And I think I take that anxiety onto every single plane ride that I go on. And I really, really have to remember, well, a little bit of turbulence is fine. But when you're not used to flying and being on a plane, it's a different thing. I think a lot of people, especially in other countries, are just used to that, but I'm not. I can get everywhere I want to inside Europe on a train, and it just doesn't take me that long. So that's something that I opt for way more often. But yeah, it was a good flight, and I can't believe I'm saying this because this was actually, well, my best case scenario, and it happened. It's like never happens. So I'm still really, really happy about that. So we got to Miami in the late evening, and it was 27 degrees still at that time of day. So we were just sweating, mostly sweating. And then we got to our apartment, and it was really cool. It was really nice. I think we liked it very much. We weren't that used to the AC. So I remember like the first things that I asked my friend to do for me, because he's way taller than I am, is to just close the AC, because you couldn't shut it down. There wasn't a panel where you could just turn it off. No, we had to actually manually close it. But I also understand the necessity for an AC, because during the day, we really enjoyed having it because it was super warm outside. And then when we took a break and we got back inside, it was just amazing. And that's definitely something that you will not find in Europe that much. I'm used to it, so I'm not used to having an AC around. But with these summers being so warm, I really want one, because it was just so much better sitting in very moderate temperature on the couch than, sweating in places you don't want to be sweating in. So, that was something nice. But the only thing we did that day was just go to bed. And because we went from east to west, the time difference was that we went back in time. So we had much more time to just fall asleep, take the rest that we needed. And it was really good. And I think it was the best kind of plan we could have ever come up with, because we could just go to bed and rest. And, you want to sleep on a plane. And as I said, our other friends totally did for like 10 hours, but we didn't. So we just needed sleep, and we got that. And it was so, so good. But of course, we woke up super early in the morning. But for the first day in Miami, that was great because we just had so much more time. On the one hand, it wasn't great because many of the things that we wanted to do weren't open yet, and we just rushed through our plan way too quickly. But other than that, it just gave us more time to enjoy the things we wanted to see and do the things we wanted to do. So we were in Miami for 5 full days. And when I think about the expectations I had for Miami, there wasn't really a lot that I could think of. When we did some research, of course, we found out that there were so many cool things to see and to do. And this is how we came up with a really good plan to see as much as possible. But I really didn't know anything about Miami. So my expectations were basically palm trees, beaches, and partying. And of course, that happened. But other than that, there was just so much more to the city, which I can now appreciate now that I'm back. I really like to remember. And I'm just going to give you like an overview of what we did and what we experienced and how I liked it. So the first thing we, of course, noticed was the weather. The weather was so amazing. We were so lucky. There was barely any rain. I'm trying to think about it right now. If there was even any rain at all, I don't think there was. Maybe at night, but then we were asleep, of course, so we didn't really care about that. But it was like 26 to 30 degrees. And sometimes on the weather app I have on my phone, it just said it feels like 33 degrees. And it sometimes really did. Like, it was actually warm. It felt like proper European summer. And it was crazy because I've never had any vitamin D in January. I never felt the sun on my skin in January before, and I never used sunscreen in January before. So, I hate doing it, but it saves me from dying, so that's good. But it was just so nice, and that's exactly what my friend wanted for his birthday, because Compared to what Germany looked like while we were on that trip, it was just cold, freezing, and sad. And we were just enjoying the sun and the beach and the water and all of the other things that we did. Of course, running around and sightseeing at 33 degrees, or at least feeling like 33 degrees, was a lot, but we still made the best of it and we just enjoyed it and tried to ignore the temperature. But again, that's exactly what my friend wanted. He wanted a summer birthday, and that's what he got, and we all enjoyed it, I think. We also enjoyed getting inside sometimes and just like cooling down for a minute, but it was just beautiful. I mean, everything looked so beautiful. Every single photo that we took has a beautiful blue sky and super crazy sunshine on it. So, I mean, it was just perfect. Like, that's the word I would use. It was perfection. And something that I experienced for the first time in Miami was proper Mexican food. I was actually really amazed by the Latin American influence, and I really, really liked it. I know a little bit of Spanish. I don't know that much. Honestly, let's face it, I don't know enough. I should know more after, having Spanish classes for years in school, but I mean, if you don't speak it, you forget a lot. And I tried to pick it up in university again, and I did, and it was good while it lasted. But once I got out of that class, I just forgot everything again. So it was nice to be able to read some signs and to vaguely communicate with Uber drivers. But the Mexican food that we had in Miami was just amazing. One of my friends, he is from America, and he told me, you have to try the Mexican food. Like, don't try anything else, only have Mexican food. And we basically did. For several occasions, lunches and dinners, we had Mexican food. I think the first time we went on the second day, and we had a very, very nice taco session in a very small restaurant. We had tacos and beans and rice, and these were soft shell tacos with, I think, chicken or steak, and it was just so, so good. And then for lunch on the third day, we went to a Mexican restaurant again. This might have actually been my favorite place that we went to. They had soft shell tacos, hard shell tacos with variations of meat and rice and beans and pico de gallo and so many other things. It was just perfect. Like, I still really, really want to have that food again because it was really, really amazing. And I think on the fourth day we had dinner at a Mexican restaurant again. So we really went for it, and it was just really, really good. Honestly, it was such a different cuisine for me that I have never experienced properly. And I know that it's really hard to find really good Mexican food where I live. I don't think there is a Mexican place in my city, but I also know that in bigger cities like Berlin, it's really hard to find an authentic Mexican place. So we just had to take it all in while we were in Miami, and we did, and we loved it. And then we, of course, wanted to see all the things Miami is really known for. And I think my favorite part about that was going to South Beach and seeing the beautiful, colorful lifeguard towers. And of course, we took a lot of pictures with them, but we're tourists, the cliche exists for a reason. But we also went to North Beach and to Middle Beach and just walked along the promenade and encountered a snake and a really big lizard, I'd say. I mean, I'm not sure, but that was nice, You quickly realized, oh my God, yeah, we're not in Europe anymore. But yeah, we survived. No one was bitten or attacked, so all good. But we were screaming, and the people behind us were just laughing. But the beaches were just beautiful. They were amazing. And just feeling the sand between your toes, I haven't felt that in a long time. And feeling that in January was just epic. Of course, we went to the Art Deco district. We went to Little Havana, which was one of my highlights. And also, of course, we tried a lot of American fast food staples. I really wanted to go to Shake Shack because I've never been, but I've heard about it. And we tried that, and we really liked the burgers. And also, I really wanted to go to IHOP to have a proper American breakfast. And it was really good. And we also really enjoyed that. And then we went to a few museums. museums, among them the Perez Art Museum, and I was really into that. I really liked the museum, and I've been to countless museums at this point, and I really liked that this museum was really interactive. You could try out a lot of things. For example, before you even got into the building, there was basically a cube of really long blue ropes hanging from, well, somewhat of a ceiling, and you could just try to walk into it, but then getting out was really difficult, and one of my earrings got stuck, so that was great. But then also inside the museum, for example, there was a labyrinth of changing rooms, and because of the mirrors, you never really knew where you were, if you could pass through or if you were basically trapped. And all of these optical illusions were a big part of the museum. And I really liked it because, I also like looking at art, at paintings. I love art. I love doing that. I enjoy that very much. But sometimes change is really good. And not going to another museum with really famous paintings was also nice. Again, I do enjoy doing that. But just trying out something new felt really, really good. And we also went to the Institute of Contemporary Art, which was also good. It was very contemporary, and it was a lot of installations and paintings, which I also liked very much. But the Perez Art Museum, I fell in love. I really enjoyed it there. Maybe I should have thrown in that disclaimer a little earlier, but please excuse if I mess up some names. I'm not sure if it's really called Perez Art Museum or Perez Art Museum, but when I say Paris, it just sounds like I'm talking about Paris, France. So I'm not sure, but if the pronunciation is wrong, I apologize. I'm trying to do my best, so please excuse me if I mess up any names. So to sum up Miami, it was great. It was warm. It was basically a very typical summer holiday with museums, beaches, the sea, with just great, great food. Mexican food, I can't even. And many, many great new experiences and opportunities to see things that I've never seen before and experience things that I've never experienced before. We met really, really nice people, and we just had a great time there. And then we went on to go to New York City. So we took a flight on our 5th day in Miami late at night, and we landed in New York City about 3 hours, maybe 2.5 hours later. So that was a very quick flight, and it was very easy. I just binged 2 episodes of Grey's Anatomy. It was amazing. So when we landed, we just tried to, run through the airport. No, actually, we had to wait a long time for our luggage for some reason, but then we took an Uber and we got to our hotel, and we did the same thing. We just checked in and went to bed. So because I always wanted to go to New York, I was really excited to be there. And I had this super annoying habit of just telling everyone how excited I was. I feel like every day I was like, we're in New York. And then when I realized that we would be leaving soon, I was always like, oh my God, we're going to be leaving soon. We're going to leave New York. Can we not extend the trip? But of course we couldn't. So let me just tell you what we did. Of course, we did all of the touristy things. So on day 1, it all started out with Times Square because our hotel was really close to Times Square, and we saw it in the daylight, and it was pretty crowded but not too crowded. And I think that was the one really good part about January. I thought New York was just empty. People told me crowds will be there. You cannot take one step. It's going to be so annoying, but it was just so empty. There was no one there. I think for a big city like New York, January is just the perfect time to go because there were no people there. It was really nice. So we, walked around Times Square and enjoyed the flashy screens. And then we went on to go to the MoMA. So I really wanted to go to the MoMA. It was one of my big things on the list for New York City that I wanted to see. And I really liked it, but I thought it was so big. Honestly, I think for the MoMA, you need more time. We took as much time as we could. but we could have spent another day there. Like, let's be honest. It had 6 floors, but the 6th was closed. So we decided to go rogue and just work our way down, and we started on the 5th. And we really enjoyed the 5th and the 4th, but by the 3rd floor, which was only half the floor because another section of that floor was closed, we were exhausted. And the good thing is we saw the Van Gogh painting really early on and Monet's water lilies, and it was just so cool to see these paintings live. But we would have needed more time and just also more energy to really appropriately enjoy all of the beautiful paintings and video installations and everything that was inside the MoMA. So if you go, maybe split it if you can. Do 2.5 floors on one day and then 2.5 floors on the other, or 3 on one and 3 on the other if the 6th is actually open. But I really enjoyed being there, and I really enjoyed my time there. We had really good ramen that day. That was amazing. And then we went to Central Park, and I think that's the only time I would not recommend to go in January, because Central Park was basically gray, brown, and dead. So no leaves on the trees, those beautiful pictures of the beautiful Central Park trees. No, everything was just dead. And it was just winter, we just had to face it, but we still tried to make the best of it. We walked through most of Central Park. I mean, maybe half of it, actually. I mean, Central Park is so big, but we really, really enjoyed it. And I just tried to, breathe in the cool Central Park air and just enjoy my time there. And we really did. And also, we saw the sunset in Central Park. We climbed up on one of those like big rocks and just sat down and enjoyed the sunset, and it was really nice. And then we had another coffee experience, and then we wanted to go to the Guggenheim Museum. But it was so crowded that we just didn't get in, so we decided to skip it, and I was really sad about that. Honestly, I really wanted to go to the Guggenheim Museum. Like, I wanted to see the insides, I wanted to see the exhibitions, but also the architecture of the building. But you know what? I'm just saving this for my next New York City trip, because there will be a round 2, and I'm just putting it on the list for my second trip, so that's fine. But yeah, this is basically how our first day in New York ended, and I really liked it. I really liked Central Park, although the trees had no leaves. I also really liked the MoMA, and I really liked Times Square. I mean, it was crazy, but it was still cool. We also tried to do a little bit of shopping, but we didn't really buy anything. I had a few stores on my list I wanted to go to because I've never been. Like, for example, I really wanted to go to Anthropologie. I really wanted to go to Free People and just do a little bit of really, really good New York City shopping, but I didn't, and I couldn't, and I don't know why, and I was really upset about that, because I planned on spending money, but sometimes it doesn't happen, and you know what, I came back with way more money than I thought I would, so that's also pretty good. So the morning of day 2 was an interesting one. We really wanted to get some Broadway tickets. We didn't before we got to New York City, but we really wanted to try. So we got in line at the theater. We split up. We chose 4 of our favorite musicals. We chose Hamilton, Funny Girl, Chicago, and Moulin Rouge. And we just tried our luck. And then we were lucky because we got tickets for Chicago. And honestly, I've been to theater performances, I've been to operas, musicals, I've been to plays, to ballets, to a lot of different kinds of performances, and I have never in my life seen anything as good as what we saw that night. I was blown away by what we saw that night. As I said, I've never seen anything that good in my life, and I go to theaters regularly. Like, I do it a lot because I enjoy it so much, but I was blown away by the performances, by the people on stage, the orchestra. It was just so good. I have never in my life seen anything that good. And now I understand why the tickets are so expensive, because what you see on Broadway, you cannot get anywhere else. And I've also been to theater houses in different cities, in different countries, big ones, small ones. I've never experienced what I experienced that night. Like, it was just so good. It was amazing. I was completely shocked at how good it was. And now I'm completely obsessed with Chicago the musical. I mean, damn, so good. I recommend it to anyone. Go see a Broadway show. I think that actually was the highlight of our entire trip for me. But we did a lot of other cool things that day. We went to Bryant Park. We saw the New York Public Library, including the reading hall, the big, beautiful reading hall with the beautiful ceiling, because we got on a tour. We also saw the Grand Central Station, and we went to a place to have fries called Sticky's Finger Joint. It was just so tasty. We also went to see the Empire State Building, the Flatiron Building, and then we went to the Rockefeller Center to get to top of the rock and just have a beautiful view of the city. And then we saw the sunset, and it was really nice. But this is like the only time it started raining a bit, but then we rushed to the theater, so it was fine. But that was also very impressive and such a beautiful view. On day 3, we went to Greenwich Village and we saw Carrie Bradshaw's house, and we also saw the Friends building, so that was really cool. And then we discovered there is a La Durée shop, the macaron place from Paris, so we went in and just had such a tasty, beautiful little treat. And then we also went to Little Italy and Chinatown, and then we went to see part of the sunset on Brooklyn Bridge, and that was really good timing. We saw most of the sunset on the High Line Walk, but being on Brooklyn Bridge, although it was really crowded, it was so cool. I mean, the view is spectacular, the bridge is really cool, and we just had a great time and a really good view because it wasn't cloudy at all that day. It was really sunny. And you know, throughout this entire New York City trip, we've come across places I felt like I've seen before, and that's because of like movies and TV shows. It happened to me so much. And when we were on Brooklyn Bridge, I was immediately reminded of Miranda and Steve from Sex and the City reconciling on that bridge and just finding each other, and it was so romantic. So again, that happened to me a lot, that I stood like on a street in New York City and I was like, this is reality. Or am I part of a movie? No, actually, that was really cool. It was a cool feeling, and I really enjoyed that. And then on that same night, we also saw the Vessel, the really famous building. And then we had a really good dinner at Al Antico Vinaio, if I pronounce that correctly, which is a focaccia place, and they do really good focaccia. And that was day 3. So on our last day in New York City, and I know, 4 days in New York City, I mean, you just want to be there longer, but that's okay. So the first thing is that place right down under Manhattan Bridge, where you can see the Manhattan Bridge between the two buildings on that street. So we wanted to go there, but it took us way longer than expected because the president was in town. So that was cool. I think I'm never ever going to be as close to the president of America as I've been on that day. It's never going to happen again. So that was kind of cool. But it took us like an hour to get there from where our hotel was. So we didn't really plan for that. So afterwards, we had lunch right away and we went to another really good ramen place. And then afterwards, we just walked through Brooklyn and then eventually took the Staten Island ferry to see the Statue of Liberty. And that was a very cold boat ride. I mean, it was freezing. I didn't feel my hands at a certain point, but it was all worth it. It was very, very nice to be as close as we were. I know you can really go to the Statue of Liberty, but I thought it would make more sense to see it from further away than to just be there and then have to look up. But yeah, that was a great experience. And then afterwards, we went to see Wall Street, the Oculus Center, and the 9/11 Memorial. We unfortunately didn't make it to the museum. We wanted to, but because of the traffic, we really didn't have any time. And that was very unfortunate. So this is definitely going to be on my list for my second New York trip as well. But I thought the 9/11 Memorial was a very emotional moment. I didn't expect it to hit me so hard. You know, I still remember everything I saw on TV. I was old enough to realize what was happening, but still very young to really understand the whole thing about 9/11, but I will never forget the pictures I saw on TV. So being there where this horrible tragedy happened, it was a very emotional moment and I got goosebumps, and I really thought the memorial was something that I will probably never forget. It was very impressive, and it was definitely something that I thought everyone who visits New York City should see at least once. So Afterwards, we unfortunately had to leave to get our luggage from the hotel. We went to have Chick-fil-A as a very, very good finishing touch to our beautiful, amazing trip. And then we rushed to the airport and unfortunately had to go home. So, what are my final thoughts on this trip? I am still amazed by everything I saw. I did not have any big expectations for Miami, but I enjoyed it so much. I just enjoyed being on summer holiday in January. The weather was great, the people were super nice, the food was amazing, and everything else we saw was very cool. And I really enjoyed our time there. But then being in New York City, where I had so many expectations, so many high expectations, and they were all met, I was completely overwhelmed by how much I really enjoyed being there and how much I liked the city. And as I said in the beginning, I would love to move there, but at least I would like to travel there again and again and just see as much of this really cool city as I can. We've only been to Brooklyn and Manhattan, so there's just so much more to discover. I really want to go to Williamsburg too and just see so much of this amazing city and see more Broadway shows because, oh my God, yes, I will never forget that, and if I go back, I will make sure to see another show or maybe more than one. We also really tried to get tickets for another show, but unfortunately, the only day we had left for a second show was a Monday, so there was nothing much to see, unfortunately. But oh my God, next time we're just going to plan better. But I'm trying to say it was amazing. It was everything I expected. It was everything I ever dreamed of. I fell in love with the city and I really want to go back. So, New York City, you were pretty amazing. So, yeah, this sums up my entire trip and one of the best experiences of my life. Maybe one of the best experiences ever. I don't know. I mean, definitely one of the best experiences of 2023. And honestly, having 2023 start like that, I could not have asked for more. Like, it was just the best thing ever. So I will stop talking now because I've talked to you for so many minutes at this point. I hope you enjoyed my little story time of our trip, and I hope you can just go to America yourself and just see what I saw and experience what I've experienced and just enjoy it and have a safe flight if you do, if you go. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.